Hello again. Welcome to the October episode of Let's Talk Miamisburg. Glad to have you with us again. I'm Gary Giles. I am the city's public information officer. Well, here's what we have in store for you over the next 30 minutes. A little later in the program, we'll welcome Battalion Chief Andy Harp from the Miami Valley Fire District. October is National Fire Prevention Month, and Andy will tell us about this year's fire safety theme and some of the local activities taking place. You'll want to be sure and stay tuned for that discussion. First up, though, we're happy to provide you with a report from Miamisburg City Schools. We always like visiting with our school friends once a year, and it's a pleasure to welcome back to the program the Superintendent, Dr. David Vail, on the far right of your screen, and District Treasurer and Chief Financial Officer, Tina Hageman. Before we get started, viewers should be aware that our episode here in October is pre-recorded. As a result, we will be unable to accept questions over the telephone. We will, however, be providing you with contact information if you'd like to follow up on any of our topics. David Vail and Tina Hageman, thank you so much for being with us. Welcome.
Thanks for having us, Gary. It's always a pleasure to be on board with you.
You're both returning guests, and we appreciate your time. We want to begin this year with information about Election Day, which is coming up on November the 5th. Voters will see an issue this year from Miamisburg City Schools. David, tell us what the district is requesting on the ballot.
We're requesting a renewal of a levy that we've had in place since 2010. That was the first time it was passed, and it was renewed in November of 2014. It's a 5-year levy, strict renewal, no increase in revenue to the school district. So basically what I tell people is we're going to operate again on the same allowance you've given us for the last 5 years.
There you go. It's a good way to describe it. Now, operating levy funds. Let's remind the viewers what operating levy funds can be used for.
Well, I'll do a little bit of that, and I'm sure Tina will correct me as I'm always wrong. But we usually have, when we talk about the funding in schools, we talk about operating funds and PI funds is usually the two that we talk about. Operating is for daily expenses to operate, as it says, salaries, benefits, programs, related services, consumable goods, those types of things, as well as some of our services. Purchase services, electricity, air conditioning, heating, oil, those kind of things.
Paying the bills.
Got to do that.
Right, paying the bills. There are different types of levies that voters see on ballots for different things. How would you describe for someone what a substitute emergency levy is? Tina?
Well, the state calls it a substitute
Sure.
emergency levy. That's what we're required to call it.
Sure.
It's just money needed in a specific dollar amount. So we're collecting a specific dollar amount each year that goes towards operating funds, as Dr. Vail outlined for everyone. As valuations go up, millage goes down, so it's a specific dollar amount each year. The difference between a substitute and an emergency is that as new property is built, that substitute will pick up that new property, which is not the case in emergencies.
So as it develops?
As it develops,
Okay.
correct,
All
yes.
right.
So it does bring additional revenue, but only on new properties as it's built, not to the current taxpayers.
Okay, and to reiterate, renewal. You're going to
Renewal.
collect the same dollar amount going forward that you collect now.
Exactly,
On that levy.
no additional taxes.
Yeah,
Okay.
as Tina said, it's $7.225 million, and what we do is we'll send that off to the Board of Elections, and what they will do is then take the valuation of the property and say, okay, based on the amount of money you're trying to raise, this is what the millage will be.
Sure. And when does the current levy expire? When will this one take effect?
We have collections on the current levy through December 2020, so we're not asking for new collections until January 2021.
Sure, sure. So more than a year left on the
Correct.
existing. Okay.
This gives us an opportunity to plan and budget.
Tina, school districts get their revenue from a variety of sources.
Yes.
Now, we've got a chart that we're going to put on the screen for the viewer at home, and it shows how that breaks down for Miamisburg. So we'll just ask you to talk us through that chart if you would.
Well, I think the most important thing is real estate taxes and personal property taxes. That comes from our community, which is the blue and the green sections of the bar chart. So 50% of the district revenue comes from the community. From that 50%, 24 of that is this levy that we're asking the voters to renew. Overall, this levy consists of 12.25% of our overall revenues. The next biggest factor is, of course, state revenues, state foundation payments to the district, which is about 28 to 30% each year. So
Half of your revenue is coming from the local community. That makes
Correct.
these levies
very, very
absolutely
important.
essential, doesn't it?
Yes.
The funding that is determined that districts receive from the state of Ohio, you mentioned that as also a significant part of your pie.
Correct.
How does Miamisburg stack up with its share of that state funding?
It varies from year to year.
Sure.
This year is a 1920 school year, is very, very different from what we've had in the past.
There have been changes?
There have been changes.
Okay.
The governor has not given the districts any additional money for operating revenue. So we're in essence frozen at what we got for fiscal year 19. So we have gotten student wellness and success funds, which are desperately needed in school districts to help with student issues and things that are needed, but it doesn't help us with our operating funds. So we're still putting the pieces together. So we get more than some and less than some. In previous years, we've been capped, which means if we had been fully funded, we would have gotten an additional $2 million in revenue.
That formula, that whole issue with the state of Ohio education funding, it can be complicated.
It is
can't
very complicated.
For people in your business, it can be
Yes.
complicated, much less members of the public, right?
Correct, yes. We go to many, many trainings, and sometimes it's still as clear as mud.
And something else to reiterate, going on what Dr. Vail said earlier, no amount of this levy is expended on any sort of facilities,
Correct.
right?
Yes, that is correct. It is only for operating expenses, so salaries and benefits primarily.
Sure, sure. Another tax issue for the region. An increase in property values has caused property taxes for many people to increase in Montgomery County. Even with this, to reiterate again, passage of this levy renewal won't add to that in any way.
It shouldn't. It should not.
Sure.
Yes. I mean, the county auditor always has to look at how much we're collecting and what millage we're collecting
Sure.
in order to reach that 7.225 million as
Sure.
we've asked for. So as values go up, the millage should go down. So we're collecting less
Right.
in millage, but the same amount in dollars. So.
May go up, but it's not going to be as a result of this. It's as a
Correct.
result of
Yes.
Other factors.
Exactly.
Right? You're watching Let's Talk Miamisburg, a production of the Miami Valley Communications Council. We're glad to have you. Our first issue for October is Miamisburg City Schools, and we have Dr. David Vail, the superintendent, with us, as well as treasurer and chief financial officer Tina Hagman. We're glad to have you with us as well. Let's put that screen before we move topics. Let's put that summary screen on for the viewer at home and just capture that levy issue and give you all the key facts for that. That's Election Day, November the 5th. It is called Issue 9. It is a substitute emergency levy. It is a renewal and is being placed on the ballot by Miamisburg City Schools. Always important to vote every election day, and we hope to see you out there at the polls this year as well. Elsewhere, David, there is other news taking place with the district. We want to cover some of that too while you're here with us. State report cards. They were recently released.
Correct.
There's a lot to digest, as always, but overall, how would you assess Miamisburg's results?
Well, we got an overall grade of C. It's the first year that they've given an overall grade before. They've revamped the report card numerous times over the last few years.
Right.
And we got a C overall, which is obviously, we would like to be higher. We'd like to be an A or a B, but C is better than a D or an F, and so we like that. There's 6 categories in there: achievement, progress, gap closing, graduation rate, improving at-risk K through 3 readers, and prepare for success. And each of those get their own grades as well. Probably the ones that we want to emphasize the most are gap closing. That means that we have improved that from an F to a B over the last 3 years. That means our most vulnerable student populations could be our English language learners, our special ed groups, any of those special interest groups. We've closed that gap to where they're bringing up with the rest of the student body. So that's been a great feather in our cap, I think, from bringing that from an F to a B in 3 years.
Sure.
The other thing is the graduation rate. We got an A in that. We've done that for years and years. And I want to say that's a great achievement, especially with right now, as we talked about before, was with the 4 classes in the high school right now, freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors, there are 3 different graduation requirements for those 4 classes. So it's talk about a moving target. If you skip a grade, you got to change your graduation requirements, or if you get held back, you change your graduation requirements.
Sure,
But,
sure.
you know, it's always it's something they're talking about revamping the report card. They're talking about revamping the graduation requirements. So everything year to year is certainly on the table, and they throw it at us, and we adapt.
Tough for the counselors at the high school, the administrators, the teachers, everybody when you have a situation like that.
It definitely is. You know, we try to get it in, you know, they'd get it to us in a timely fashion if they can, and then we make the adaptations and change our methods and what we have to look at and pass that on to the kids and the parents. And, you know, that communication piece is phenomenal. I mean, if they're not get the word, they're going to be behind the 8 ball.
Sure. Well, we talked about the state funding formula being complicated. The state report card, also very complicated
yeah,
for especially the layman.
Yeah, state report card and, you know, graduation requirements, anything they put in the end of class exams, end of year exams, all those have changed, evolved over really the last 5 years, and it's really put a different twist on what the kids need to do to get through and what we have to do to get to them to the graduation day.
Right. We're well into the fall season. It's been another successful fall within the school district. If you were going to list a few of the highlights for the first few months of the year, how would you describe some of those?
Well, I tell you, up and down, surprising and not so surprising. We've got some teams rebuilding, had some other teams fare better than we thought. So it's certainly been a wonderful and a quick year. We're wrapping up on quite a few of those. As a matter of fact, 3 of our teams are heading into postseason. Cross country is going to be at the G-Walk this weekend. We've got volleyball and both boys and girls soccer heading into tournament next week. Mm-hmm. So as you see, you know, it seems like we just started yesterday, but the fall season's wrapping up. A lot of things going on. The band and the guard, they placed 3rd out of 33 people at the Buckeye Invitational up at Ohio State last month. So everybody's been working hard, and then coming up at the end of October will be the Miamisburg Band Invitational, and that's always a highlight, and having a lot of bands from across the state come and compete there. Other things going on, we just don't talk athletics, but academics. Yeah. I call it the first crown of the Triple Crown is the National Honor Society inductions, and those are coming up at the end of the month as well. Senior awards, then the 2nd crown, and graduation, the 3rd crown. But National Honor Society induction is certainly a great event, and to highlight those kids and also the teachers that they pick to be their preferred teacher or their teacher that has influenced them the most. Mm-hmm. And we go from there, and then back into giving awards. Hall of Fame induction. They just named the 4 inductees for this year's class, and that'll happen in January. Jim Horner, class of 58, Steve Coughlin from class of 73, Mike Chandler for class of 76, and Sam Moat from class of 06. So that, again, great event. The 2 Jasons, Jason Osborne, Jason Shea, do a great job putting that on. It's a great event. It's growing every year. Pretty soon we'll outgrow the cafeteria. I don't know where we'll go next with the event, but it's a wonderful event to highlight some of the achievements of some of our graduates.
We'll look forward to that. You know, that always takes place during basketball season, and one thing I've always enjoyed about that is that as they introduce the new class and tell a little bit something about them, a lot of the existing Hall of Fame members are out there on the floor sort of to welcome them into the club. It looks great.
Yeah, it is. You know, what the name says is induction. Not only inducted in there, but the group welcomes them in. They show up, they go to the game, they get their moment in the spotlight, so to speak, on the court, and it's a great thing for all of them.
It's a great gesture.
It is.
Great gesture. One last thing, even as the school year is well underway, and certainly you've got teachers in all the classrooms, but there are still staffing challenges that the district has for other types of positions within your organization, and you're looking for some good people for those spots even now.
Yeah, we're always looking for good positions. You know, knock on wood, we've had teachers in all the classrooms taking care of that, but you know, some of those teaching areas, special education, always looking for special education teachers, some of the special areas, but any position in our district, bus driver, food service, custodian, certainly could use some substitutes, could use some filling of positions, because it's not just us, it's across the state and across the nation where those jobs are going unfilled. But we've been fortunate to have people in those positions. We're just really thin in a lot of them, and when we have to go to substitutes, it makes it tough for everybody involved.
Sure. Well, unfortunately, our time is up. Let's put some contact information up on the screen for the viewer, whether you want to call and inquire about any of those job openings or have any questions about the levy that we talked about a little earlier. There's the contact information. David, if you'll talk us through it.
We see the mailing address there, and then the website, miamisburgcityschools.org. We also have a Twitter account if you do that kind of thing. And then the phone number, 937-866-3381. That'll take you to central office, and we can patch you through to anybody that you need to talk to.
Of course, we must tweet above all else.
Sure.
And you're completely on board with the tweeting. I can tell.
I am. Some people share that with me.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. We look forward to getting an update down the road.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have Dr. David Vail, Superintendent of Schools with the Miamisburg City School District, and Tina Hagman, the District Treasurer and CFO, joining us here in segment number 1 on October's Let's Talk Miamisburg. We're going to take a 60-second break. When we return, we're going to talk about fire education. Stay with us. And welcome back to the October episode of Let's Talk Miamisburg. I'm Gary Giles. Again, glad to have you with us. And a reminder, we are pre-recorded this month. No opportunity to call in with any questions, but we will give you some contact information at the end of this segment. And joining me for segment number 2 is Battalion Chief Andy Harp. And Andy is with the Miami Valley Fire District. And that is a district that provides fire and paramedic emergency medical service to both the city of Miamisburg and Miami Township. Andy, so glad to see you again. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Tell our viewers how long you've been in the fire profession now and maybe some of your primary responsibilities as a battalion chief.
Well, I've been in, this December will be 37 years. And I'm the administrative battalion chief. Currently, we have 3 shift battalions, and they are the shift commanders. They run the day-to-day operations, but I'm the administrative battalion chief, so I'm the EMS coordinator, so I take care of all the EMS trainings and the protocol testing. I run the bureau, which is fire prevention, arson, and inspection, and I'm the lead grant writer. So all those things kind of spider out into different responsibilities, but that's the main thing that I do.
And a little outreach.
Yes.
Which happily brings you to us and brings you to this segment. That's terrific.
Yeah, always for fire prevention.
There you go. We appreciate getting a report from the fire district every October when fire prevention gets national attention. You and I were talking, this observance has really evolved from originally a fire prevention day.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
The activity has exploded.
Yeah, well, I mean, it started out in 1920 when Woodrow Wilson declared Fire Prevention Day as October 9th, and then Calvin Coolidge in 25 decided to do Fire Prevention Week. And I think across the country, most fire departments are finding out that it's Fire Prevention Month because there's so many demands on our time. Not only do we spend time in the schools and the elementary schools teaching fire prevention, but it seems we were just at Home Depot last Saturday for a fire prevention event. We're going to be at Lowe's this Saturday for a fire prevention event. We do a bunch of fire extinguisher classes. We give talks. I just got asked this morning to come to Red Cross next Thursday and talk a little bit. So we spend the entire month out in the community interacting with the public to spread the fire prevention message.
Yeah, well, I remember not that long ago where we still referred to it as Fire Prevention Week, and I think it was your guys that said, you know, let's start calling it month because we don't do all of our stuff in 1 week. There's no way.
Well, it takes us 2 weeks just to get through the elementary schools.
Sure.
So we've already started this week. We're going to be in elementary schools all week. Of course, now next week we'll have to take a break because of fall break that the school system has, but then we'll follow up that third week and finish out all the different elementary schools.
Well, the 2019 theme is shown on the graphic behind us here on the set. Tell us what that theme is and what it means.
Okay. Not every hero wears a cape. Plan and practice your escape. And what we're trying to get across this year is we want people to spend time with their families, with their children, planning fire escapes from their home. Now, we have children practice fire drills in the school system. When we go to restaurants or public events or coliseums, I think hopefully everyone looks and finds where their exits are so they can get out. But the place that we spend the most time, our homes, we probably don't realize that we need an escape plan there in case something happens. We just think since we live there, we're going to do fine, it's going to be great. But when you wake up in the middle of the night and your house is full of smoke and there might be heat and the smoke detectors are going off, it's confusion. And you may not know, you may get turned around or you may have some problems getting out, maybe not so much for the adults, but certainly for the children. And so we want you to practice. We have a moniker we call Edith, exit drills in the home.
Okay.
And we just like for you to practice, just like the children do at school, we'd like for you to practice, escape drills in your home so that, your children, they have that opportunity to get outside, have a meeting place outside so we know when we show up, we're able to verify immediately that no one's still in the home, and certainly teach their children not to go back in for anything once they're
I
outside.
think you mentioned a really key part of that message, which is you can think it through in your head, but the confusion that must exist if that fire breaks out in the middle of the night,
Yes.
especially for young people,
Yes,
has to be overwhelming.
right.
You've talked to them, I'm sure, that have been in that situation.
Oh yeah, and it is. I mean, it's because they're confused. They don't know what's going on. They don't understand what is happening. The smoke detector is not a sound that you hear all the time. We should be testing our smoke detectors every month, but it's not a sound that you hear all the time.
Sure.
And it's scary. And you can even play little, I don't want to say tricks, but if you pretend like the fire's at the front door, does the child know to go out the back door? If the fire's in the hallway outside of their bedroom, do they know to go out the window? And have you taught them that? Because that's what happens is, their primary exit, they're used to going in and out the same way every time. Mm-hmm. And if their primary exit is blocked, can they think fast enough on their feet to find that secondary exit? We do that with businesses too.
Sure.
Because people, their muscle memory says, I get up from my desk and I go out this door, and that's the way I come in and that's the way I go out every time. So we'll take a piece of cardboard or something and say, oh, you can't go out this door's blocked with fire. So now what do? And you can just see the confusion in their face.
And another thing that I think people have to train their mind to do is something you mentioned as well, which is when you're out in public in stores, a mall, a restaurant, while you might not be able to practice it,
a movie
it's
theater.
helpful to just think it through a little bit.
That's right.
Just in case.
Yeah. Well, my wife, I'm looking around all the time, and when they say at the movie theater, find out where your exits are, I'm the guy that's sitting up and I'm looking around, and because I want to know where they're at.
You've trained your mind to do that, haven't you, through the
hotel
years?
rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, how many doors is it if you go right to the exit? We've taught our children that. If you're crawling on the ground, and I've touched 9 doors, I know the 10th door is the exit to the right, and the 7th door is the exit to the left.
So let's talk a little bit more detail about how you get that message across. You said you're going out to elementary schools, not you personally, but you've got crews going out there. You're going to every elementary school in Miamisburg, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and Bishop Leibold. Okay.
Is this a classroom to classroom thing, or are you gathering everybody in a gymnasium and going over the messages?
Usually it's not a classroom to classroom, but we'll combine the classrooms.
Okay.
We don't, at times we've had the entire elementary school, but that just seems like it's such a big crowd that it's hard to hold their attention and everything. So what we'll do is we'll combine some of the smaller classrooms, maybe K and 1 together, 2 and 3 together, 4 and 5 together, and because we're limited on time, and we're doing, I think, 9 or 11 schools, and so we're kind of limited on time. So we have to do some combination but we'll gear the message to the audience. The younger kids aren't going to understand fully what the 4th and 5th graders can understand. So we kind of tweak the message based on the age of the children.
Sure, you're tailoring that a little
Oh,
bit.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I guess the end goal is to make sure those kids take that message home.
Yes.
And talk about it with mom and dad. Is that
Yes.
really emphasized?
Oh, it is. It is very much, because and I still see children today that I taught way back, 100 years ago, and they'll say, hey, I still remember those fire prevention messages, and I've been teaching my children and things like that. So we want them to take it home, get their parents involved, get their grandparents involved, get their siblings involved. They may have younger siblings that aren't in school yet. So if they can get their parents geared up to, be serious about this message, then it'll filter down to the younger children also.
So viewers, if your Miamisburg student comes home and tells you that some fire district firefighters were in their school today talking about Fire Prevention Month, ask them about that message. Ask them what they learned. Have them review it for you. That'll be a good topic of conversation with the family. Well, let's switch gears a little bit. And by the way, you did mention also these appearances at retail outlets.
Yes.
that are going on with more outreach. Are any of those coming up?
Yeah, we have one this Saturday actually at Lowe's.
This Saturday at Lowe's?
Yeah,
You know the
Saturday
time?
morning. I think it's 9 to 12.
Okay, that's Lowe's near the Dayton Mall.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
Okay. If you're out and about, go out to Lowe's Saturday morning and check that out. Some firefighters will be in attendance. Halloween coming up,
Yes.
October 31st in Miamisburg, 6 to 8 p.m. The firefighters and apparatus are usually out in the neighborhoods. Will they be this year?
We will be out. If
Okay.
you're out, we'll have our lights on, and so if the children see us out there with their lights on, they can more than happy to come and get a piece of candy from us. But we also just want everybody to have a safe Halloween. Fire retardant costumes, if possible. We like face paint versus masks because you can see better. Certainly, if you're driving home that evening, be careful because children are unpredictable. They'll dash out into the street, and so we just want everybody to have a safe Halloween. Look at your children's candy. If you see anything that might have been tampered with or open, just throw it out. Don't let them eat it.
Sure, and drive with caution.
Yes.
Very, very important. Last thing, it's the time of the year where fire pits are very popular.
Right.
In Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any special kind of safety tips that you really want people to keep in mind, or any permits needed for recreational fires like a fire pit?
We do have a recreational fire permit on our website. We have some dynamics there, some standards that we go by. We follow, the state of Ohio rules for fire pits. So if you want to look at our website, you can see all that kind of stuff. The fire pits that you buy at the big box stores, they're more than adequate to use. We do request, or we do demand, that you burn clean, dry wood, no trash, no paper, no cardboard, anything like that. And of course, don't use any kind of flammable liquids to get your fire started.
Go natural.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, if you fill out the recreational fire permit, it's good for a year, but that gives us and the dispatch a heads up that somebody in the neighborhood might be having a wreck fire. If somebody calls in, they smell smoke or something like that.
If anybody has any questions about anything we've talked about here tonight, let's give the web address, let's give a main phone number.
Okay, main phone number is 937-560-2152, and we are at MiamiValleyFireDistrict.org.
Battalion Chief Andy Harp joining us here on the program from the Miami Valley Fire District. Thank you.
November 3rd, change your clocks, change your batteries.
There you go. And November 13th at 7 o'clock will be the next time that we're back with you on Let's Talk Miamisburg. I'm Gary Giles. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you then.